All right, so we should be recording now. So
Yes.
thank you, Marco, for talking to me this morning.
Yes.
From Italy, which is, an extenuating circumstances at the moment, but I'm glad that we got a chance to get together anyway.
Mhm.
So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the neurocardiology workshop that you teach, because this issue of the magazine was going to be all about working with the heart, but I want to talk about working with the heart in a different way than most people do. So not so much just about blood pressure or that kind of thing, but going into it a little bit deeper. So in your description for the class, you say that the heart is a complete brain, and I'm wondering what you mean by that.
Okay, since the middle of the 19th, a couple of American researchers has started to study the heart intrinsic nervous system. And they have found out that the heart has a population of neurons that stays in the heart. I mean, they're not just a connection, the one that connects the heart to the autonomic nervous system, but they stay locally. And that means that they are a complete nervous circuit that can process informations. So there is a local circuit that can work to memorize informations, to process informations, to make functional decisions that are completely independent than the brain. And it's not by chance that the very, very first organ that has been transplanted was in the 60s was the heart, because it's an organ that can work perfectly, completely, without any interference or any help by the brain. So the heart can perfectly work without any connection with the brain. Because if you think of a transplantation, it takes months and months before the neurological connections can rejoin, that can reconnect. So if the brain is so important for the heart function, then it will not be possible to transplant the heart. But the heart, it was the first one because it's absolutely the one that can make its own job without any help of the brain.
So when you're saying that it's a complete circuit and that it makes decisions and things, in your experience then, does the heart also have memory, and is it holding a certain amount of information that it's comparing new information to?
Yes, exactly. I think that the main aspect of understanding the heart as a brain are the anomalies that happens after heart transplantations. I think it was in 1999 or 2000 in Tucson at the annual meeting of the Applied Physiology annual meeting. One of the speakers who came to this conference was Gary Schwartz, who is the local professor of the University of Arizona, and he is the most expert in the world about these anomalies. And he was describing how many or how often people has this anomalies after transplantations of different several organs, like the kidneys, the heart, the liver, the lungs or the liver. But with the heart, it's much, much more frequent, and it's one person out of every 3 transplantations. And the receiver of the transplantation was not receiving only, let's say, an organ or a pump, but this anomalies is that people start to develop the taste, they develop the preferences of the giver. And this is absolutely against what we can understand from the neuroscience point of view, because there should no any effects from the heart, but there are huge effects, there are huge changes in people who receive the heart, as if in the heart there is something able to influence the nervous system, the memory, the tastes, the habits of people.
I've read some of that in his book. I think it's The Living Energy Universe, the one that he wrote with Linda Resick. there's some quotes from that we use actually in SIPS-4 when we're talking about the heart chakra and the that layer of the auric field, because it does seem like there's a lot of information that is being stored in and then transmitted by the heart, and so how that affects the rest of the body, but then also how that affects the energetic field that I'm creating as I walk into a room that other people are picking up, what that interference pattern looks like. Yeah, so it's interesting stuff, definitely.
Oh, absolutely. Because I think this changes completely the understanding of the human physiology and how the body interacts. From my point of view, I think that we have at least three brains that they must work together to accomplish the higher cognitive functions. And I usually describe the cranial brain as the consciousness, the heart brain is the subconsciousness, and the guts brain, it's the unconsciousness. And all these three layers has to work together to work properly. And I often talk with Charles Krebs, and I've spoken with him saying that if we want to take care of learning disabilities or all the imbalances of the higher cognitive human functions, we don't have to focus only on the cranial brain, but we have to focus also on these other two brains, because they work like in parallel, and a dysfunction or a symptom can be the consequence not only of the cranial brain, but it can be the consequence of one of these other two brains.
Well, allopathic medicine has really started paying a lot more attention to the gut brain in the last few years, right? Like suddenly the idea that we need a healthy microbiome in order to have a good immune system, or that a lot of depression and anxiety is a result of gut malfunction. I mean, that's become very mainstream in the last few years. So what do you think? Like,
Absolutely.
are they going to start paying more attention to the heart brain in the next little while? Is that already happening? Or is there a reason why that one has been kind of discounted, whereas the guts are being paid attention to?
Well, I think that, well, I'm an expert in traditional Chinese medicine, and in my classes or when I teach, I always refer to Chinese medicine. So if we want to look at this from the perspective of Chinese medicine, and we associate the microbiome or the gut brain to the entire intestinal system, so not only large intestine, but also small intestine. And then Chinese medicine tell us that the associated organ with the small intestine is the heart. Okay, so Chinese medicine is telling us that there is a tight relationship, a functional relationship between the heart and the small intestine. So between the guts. Okay, so in the heart we have a small neurological population. We have a small neurological center. While in the small intestine we have a huge one. There are more neurons in the guts than in the spinal cord. So the second place with the highest number of neurons, it's the guts. Okay, so the neurological aspect of the small intestine, it's huge, because if you think that the entire small intestine is surrounded by two layers of neurons, and the small intestine, it's 7-8 meters long. So it means it's a huge amount of neurological circuits. And this, it's connected to the heart, at least from the perspective of Chinese medicine. So I think that this should be taken into account, and probably in the future there will be a completely different way of understanding or seeing the human physiology, even if this is already happening. I think that one of the most scientific way to prove the overall health of a person is the heart rate variability. It's used as a way to define if somebody is in a health state or not. So it's not something that is going to happen in a long future, but it's something that is already going on right now.
Okay, so you were talking about working with traditional Chinese medicine, and you know, a lot of my work kind of comes down to that as well. And I noticed in your description for the workshop that you were talking about the 5 spirits, and that's something that I've been doing a little bit of research on as well for the elementals class that I've been writing. So I'm curious, how the five spirits relate to the heart for people who haven't heard of those before. And I know that there's a specific one that relates to the heart, but I'm curious if the heart has sort of an organizing influence over all of them, or what your thought is about that.
Mm-hmm. So, first of all, there is a completely different understanding of the emotional aspects from the real traditional Chinese medicine and from kinesiology. So usually in kinesiology, we approach each organ and we have a list of different emotions for each organ, but that is not exactly how Chinese medicine describes this picture. But each organ houses a different spirit, and each spirit has a different shape, has a different function. It looks like in a different way, and it performs the different functions. Okay, so first of all, in Chinese medicine, they have a metaphor where energy is described in three different forms. Usually this metaphor is comparing energy to water, and as water can manifest in three different forms, in solid like ice or snow, dynamic fluid water, and then subtle state like steam or gas. So in the same way, the energy of the body can manifest. So we will have Jing, that is the more dense state of energy. Qi, that is the one that flows in the 12 meridians. It's the dynamic one. And then we have the most subtle, that is Shen. And the five spirits are the manifestation of the Shen. So there are all five different point of view or five manifestation of the same quality of energy, that is the Shen. And the Shen is called the Shen of the heart. So this quality of energy, this type of energy, it's directly related to the heart. And one of the functions of the heart is to coordinate all the other spirits. So nothing in Chinese medicine is linear, nothing is simple. So Shen is at the same time the Shen of all the organs, but it's also the Shen of the heart. So each organ has its own one, but they are all under the control of the heart.
I have notes in front of me from the workshop that I took with you last July, where you were talking about sort of the way that energy moves from those different forms, right? Like how the ice melts into water and the water turns into steam, and we were looking at it as a circuit and as a cycle, and it's just such a lovely metaphor for how things work.
Yes.
And that makes sense with the idea of the heart being the emperor as well, right? That there's a certain amount of control or organizational structure that comes from the heart around the other organs.
Yes.
Okay, so talking about the role of the heart in emotional well-being then, it's one thing to say that there's certain emotions associated with the heart, that's pretty traditional, but how do you feel that emotions affect the physiology or the actual nervous system of the heart that we were discussing earlier?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Sorry, I've been muting myself when I'm not speaking because there's so much background noise around here. Just that we understand the heart as an emotional thing sort of metaphorically, right? Like even in Western society, we talk about the heart as being the seat of love or a heart full of jealousy or something like that. But I'm curious how you feel emotions and emotional health of the individual affects the actual physiology and neurology of the heart.
Mm-hmm. Well, there is a very important aspect related to the heart from the perspective of Chinese medicine, is that all the different senses of the body are under the control of the heart. So usually when we teach the five elements, we say that each organ controls a different sense organ. Like the kidneys or the water element are related to hearing, and the wood element controls sight and things like that. But at a deeper level, all the senses are controlled by the heart. because to understand what you're hearing, you need the shen of the heart, you need the energy of the heart. Or to realize what you're looking at, you need the energy of the heart. So I think that there is a very tight relationship between emotions and feelings. And we are able to describe an emotion only if we involve the body. We are not able to perceive an emotion mentally, but we are only able to perceive it physically. And the physical perception, any physical perception of the body is under the control of the heart. So this means that any emotion that we are able to perceive is under the control of the heart. And the brain, it's only the final conscious expression or perception of that emotion, but all the subconscious feeling of the emotions are absolutely related to the heart. This is why in my workshop we work a lot balancing the senses, because if we balance the senses, then we can balance the emotions. And there is a sentence that I often use in my classes, that it says, do you want to change the world? Change your eyes. So each time you change your perception, you can change reality, not changing the reality, but changing the way you perceive. Because our reality, it's only the result, it's the outcome of our perceptions. So changing our perceptions, we can completely change our reality. And changing this, then I can change my emotions. So I think that the heart, it works at a deeper level than just the emotions. It's the process, it's the structure that is able then to finalize into an emotion. So this is why it's so important to work on the heart.
Oh, I like that, to change your perception, change your eyes. It's good. Okay, so then talking about perceptions then, and people's perceptions, are there any big misperceptions or bad ideas about the heart that you would love to be able to clear up with your work, or that you would love to educate people about?
There's nothing general that can fit everybody, but the heart can be influenced by any trauma. Everybody can have the misperception because of what happened in the past. So the main problem is this one. So if we look from a strict neurological point of view, all the senses of the body passes through one area, that is the thalamus. And it's this center that decides what will reach the cortex and what not. So this area will decide what we will perceive, what we will be conscious of, and what not. So only a tiny, tiny fraction of all our feelings, of all our perceptions, then will become conscious. So what makes the thalamus decide this will become conscious and this not? This I will realize to feel this, and this not. It's the experiences of the past. So very often we are not perceiving today's reality, but we are perceiving what happened in the past. So this is why it's so important to clean the traumas and the experiences of the past, because then we can react to nowadays reality or to the real reality, and not just reacting to our experiences.
Okay. So with the heart storing memory and information, then you're saying that the heart would be influencing the thalamus and the reticular activating system and all of that, and deciding what becomes conscious, what becomes our experience of the present?
Yes, because there's so the primary pathway between the heart and the brain, it's the vagus nerve. And almost the 85% of the communication goes from the heart to the brain and not vice versa. So it's the heart that speaks much, much more to the brain than the brain speaks to the heart. So the heart can highly influence the brain, and the brain can only influence not so much the heart, let's say. So yes.
Okay. So then lastly, are there any resources, other than your own amazing workshop that I know that you're supposed to be presenting in Canada in June. Hopefully that all goes ahead here. Any other resources that you would recommend for people, books that would be good to read, anything that they should be into?
The first time I started to be involved or be interested in this aspects, let's say alternative aspects of the heart, was reading the book from James Oschman, the Energy Medicine, the Scientific Basis. It's where I found the first description, or but then there's a huge amount of information at the HeartMath Institute in the United States, in California, because they are the one who has performed all the main experiments, or they have made popular a lot of all these concepts. And there is one book they have let's say produced from this institute, and that it's the energetic heart. Sorry, let me check it. I thought it was already on my iPad, but let me see.
If people are watching this on YouTube, there's also another video that I did with an interview with Adam Lehman a couple years ago, where he was talking about HeartMath and the heart rate variability, and he was the one that really got me interested in that in the first place, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and just starting to research that a little bit, because it's fascinating stuff.
Oh yes, absolutely. There are a couple of ones. One is called the Coherent Heart, and the other one is the Energetic Heart, the biomagnetic interaction within and between people. They are both ebooks, and you can find them on the heartmath.com website.
Brilliant. Okay. Anything else that you want to tell us about the neurocardiology workshop that's coming up?
Well, I'm coming to Canada to teach this workshop for the first time. This is it's absolutely one of my favorite classes. I think the workshop I have already taught in all the countries where I teach, and if we will be able to make it to Canada and not be stopped by this virus, it will be my 5th continent where I'm going to teach. So I think it's a very interesting class, because it gives a completely different point of view of how the body works, but especially it gives a different perspective of how we should work as a kinesiologist. One of the aspects that fascinated me when I was reading James Oschman's book, it's a huge electromagnetic field that the heart produces. And this electromagnetic field, it interacts between people, and I think that it's one of the most important components of what we do in kinesiology sessions. It's not just exactly what we are performing, but it's the attitude of the therapist, it's the attitude of the kinesiologist that can highly influence the result of what we do. So it's not only being precise in testing or stimulating the reflexes, but I think it's all the informations that are stored in the energy field of the kinesiologist and the energy field of the client, that they interact together. If I can, I will maybe show you, let me see. Okay. Can you see the image? Okay. So I think that this is one of the most important aspects in any healing technique. And this is what we will focus on. And not only improving or learning a technique, but it's how to improve the effectiveness of our energy field and how this can affect then our clients. And I think that one of the most interesting aspects is that the shape of the heart electromagnetic field is exactly the same shape of the Earth electromagnetic field. So in physics, we know that structures that has the same shape are resonant one with the other. So this means that we will not be able only to be resonant with our clients, but through the energy field of the heart, we can be resonant with the entire energy system of the Earth. So it's the primary antenna of communication, at least from my point of view, that we can have with other people. When we talk about chakras, we often refer to the seventh chakra as the main antenna to connect with higher sources, while I think that the heart chakra is the primary antenna to connect with the same level, so to interact with others. So I think it's a very interesting topic, and I think that traditional Chinese medicine has described perfectly, and it has given us a lot of different tools and information to work on this heart energy field. And it's not by chance that in the hierarchy of the meridians, the heart is the emperor of all the meridians, and the heart is the only organ that has two meridians, because we have the heart meridian, and then we have a circulation sex meridian, the pericardium, that it's again related to the heart. So it's the only organ with two meridians, and there is a reason, I think. And Chinese medicine has described perfectly all these reasons. And so the class I teach, it's a blend of Western modern informations, a lot of physics, but also all the ancient traditional Chinese medicine energetics. And I think that people likes it.
Yep, I would agree. And so thank you so much for talking with us about this today. And I'm really looking forward to being able to talk to you more in the next little while. And I really hope that you manage to come to Canada and everything works out well for that. And would encourage everybody, if you haven't had a chance to take a workshop with Marco, go take one, because first of all, he's brilliant, as you've already seen, and secondly, he's a really good teacher, and the material's great, and it's really fun to play with and integrates well with a lot of other modalities of kinesiology. So it's very easy to take these techniques and apply them to whatever other things you already do.
Mm-hmm.
So,
oh, there is another resource or another thing that if people are interested, there is a video on YouTube of a lecture I gave in 2012 at the IKC conference in Barcelona. And it's an hour long. I mean, so there you can see I introduce all these aspects of Chinese medicine. So it's half in English and half in Spanish, but I think it's a nice video, and it will give a deeper understanding of this neurocardiology.
if you send me the link for that, I'll just pop it right along with this, and then people can easily find it from here.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yes.
Great. Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.